It's time for a cup of coffee with Will and Chris at Slumberland Furniture. From Slumberland Furniture in Osage Beach, here are your hosts, William Holtz and Chris Schneider.
What is happening in Lake of the Ozarks? The sun is shining, but boy, it's a little chilly for it being March.
Yeah, it is, but I guess that's what we get in March and April and even May. You know, you'll have a 80 degree one day and 20 degrees the next day. It's craziness.
They say welcome to Missouri weather, but that's really true everywhere you go, right?
Everywhere you go. Everybody says that.
Everyone claims to have the craziest, most unpredictable weather. And man, we got a great cup of coffee for you this week. You saw the Morgan County Sheriff's son. He was suspected of some things, left the scene of an accident, and we're just hearing that. That's a wild story.
Yeah, it's a little scary that it's taken this long for us to hear about it. So it seems like there's been a little cover-up going on or something. We'll tell you all about that.
That also, we told you about the Second Amendment Conservation Act launched in Camden County. They were really proud of that, right? Yeah. And we were kind of concerned. We're like, you can say whatever you want, but federal law, federal government, they really set or take the cake, and that's the case. Federal judge shoots down the Missouri Second Amendment Conservation Act. We'll look at that. We'll have Versailles Golf program director Kyle Nolowski. He's doing the guys program, and apparently they just launched a girls program, so we'll talk to him about that. Plus, we learned the Lake Ozark Board of Aldermen all about supporting the casino bill and thanking them for their donations. We'll look at that. Plus, our hometown hero, and I don't know if you saw, but the brackets are officially out. It's March Madness time, baby.
Yeah, and I don't even have a chance to win. I think I saw like a half of a game this year, maybe, you know. So if I win, it's because I picked the right colors of the teams or something.
I was going to say, if you remember correctly, a year ago,
the
person that won probably shouldn't have won, and so anybody's got a shot.
Well, there you go.
I even got a shot this year. The only person who doesn't have a realistic chance is Andy. Because he told me that Mizzou didn't make his Sweet 16.
Watch him win. I don't think they made my Sweet 16 either.
You're both disgusting, I'll tell you that right now. That and a whole lot more on this week's Cup of Coffee. But first, how about my guy from Slumberland, Daryl Cunningham.
Daryl Cunningham with Slumberland Furniture at the lake here. The weather outside can't decide if it's going to be spring or not, but here at Slumberland, we've definitely decided it's spring. Come check out our spring spruce up sale. Save lots of money for furniture for every room in the house. Take advantage of our local delivery. Come see us at Slumberland Furniture at the Lake, where we're bringing happy home.
All right, welcome you back, and we want to get right into it. First local story, the headline reads from Lake Expo, crash and dash. Off-duty cop leaves suspicious crash before trooper arrives. And Chris, a local deputy is under investigation by the Missouri State Highway Patrol after his involvement in a crash 3 a.m. back in December. It left another driver hospitalized. Now, there's a photo in the story where it shows a can of beer in the driver's side door, and by the time a Highway Patrol trooper arrived on scene, the deputy, 29-year-old Justin Dills, who's the son of Morgan County Sheriff Norman Dills, was gone. So kind of crazy. That's just the start of it. The Lake Expo story talks about the crash in depth, the cover. They also talk about the case in itself. But what I thought was super impressive, Kate Robbins actually put together a timeline starting with the occurrence of the crash at 3:10 a.m. all the way to 3:56 a.m. when the Missouri State Highway Patrol trooper Spencer Sears arrives on scene. So a lot to unpackage here.
Yeah, and it's a little suspicious because the deputy that was involved in the crash is the son of the sheriff, I think, of that county, of Morgan County. The deputy was not on scene when the Highway Patrol got there. The Highway Patrolman said he talked with a fireman who was reportedly the third arriving emergency responder at the scene, asked the responder when Dills had been taken away. The deputy had been taken away from the scene. He said, I don't know. They scooped him up pretty quickly after he came out of the ambulance, and they put him in a deputy's car, and he was gone. So the deputy involved was bleeding from the head. Apparently, he had gotten in the ambulance and then got out of the ambulance and went home, which is, I think that's a felony to leave the site of a crash scene. So this is not looking good.
No, and it's just crazy because, you know, if this is you, if this is me, and this happens in December, especially with the other person involved in the crash having serious injuries,
Yeah.
we've got prices to pay. We've got serious consequences. I wanted to note, it does say it does not appear a breathalyzer or field sobriety test was administered before the responding deputy removed Dills from the scene. And if you look at those photos with the mangled truck, I mean, you do see a beer in the door. And although that doesn't mean that he was drunk, you still can't have an open container of alcohol in your vehicle. And if it's on the driver's side, it's going to obviously be assumed it's in possession of the driver, which would be a ticket or a fine or a fee, and nothing so far. And then more than 3 months later, we just hear about this.
It at the very least, it looks suspicious.
Yeah.
Right? And if there was no breathalyzer taken, as you mentioned before, Officer Dills was taken away from the scene to his house. That too looks very suspicious of why don't you take a breathalyzer? Why wasn't there something administered? And he was taken away from the scene to his house by another deputy, right? So, and the dad is the sheriff, so this all stinks, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't just stink, it reeks, because there's so many variables here. First, you're off duty, right? And so when a crash occurs this close to the house, especially if you're off duty, you have to do everything in your power to prove your innocence and make sure that you didn't take any ill steps, because not only are you an off-duty deputy, your dad is the sheriff of Morgan County.
Yeah.
And so even if you did get held accountable and did everything by the book, everyone's still going to ask, was that legit? Should we be looking into this? So the fact that there wasn't a failed sobriety test, there wasn't a breathalyzer administered, and he left the scene of the accident. And there's more information too, as far as questions trying to reach him. But you're right, there's a lot of things going on here. And if you ask me, it certainly does stink.
Yeah, and I mean, this is serious stuff we're talking about. Leaving the scene of an injury accident in Missouri is a Class C felony with a penalty of $10,000 or 4 years in prison. So, I mean, this is really, really serious stuff. Seriously injuring another person while driving drunk in Missouri. And again, they didn't do a breathalyzer test, so we don't know if the officer was or was not, but that's a Class D felony with a penalty of a $10,000 fine or 7 years in prison. So we're talking some really, really serious stuff going on here. And, you know, unfortunately, it's not uncommon for this stuff to happen, but it's sad when it does. And again, since we're just hearing about it now, it seems like, you know, people have maybe just hoping it goes away or something like that.
Well, that is not going to happen. And currently, in a letter obtained by Lake Expo, the Morgan County prosecutor, Dustin Dunkley, he stated that he's been informed of the crash, or he was informed of the crash by Master Sergeant Reynolds. Dunkley requested assistance from the patrol's Division of Drug and Crime Control in investigating the crash. He also requested the assignment of a special prosecutor to avoid any appearance of conflict of interest, of course, Dad being the sheriff of Morgan County. And on December 12th, Laclede County prosecutor Amy Folsom was appointed as special prosecutor on the case. And to date, no charges have been filed. So we're sitting here. March 12th was last Saturday. That would officially have been 4 months. So 4 months or greater, Laclede County has had this, and yet to date, no charges have been filed, at the very least, leaving the scene of an accident, something, and at this point, no charges filed. And like you said, certainly something stinks here.
Yeah, and again, when Lake Expo contacted the sheriff and all that stuff, very difficult to get information out of them. They didn't want to talk, didn't want to give information, it didn't seem like, so it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, and in this situation, I mean, you really, as hard as it's going to be, you'd want to do everything by the book, move forward, and of course, there's many variables. Chris, you have a man whose son is potentially looking at charges and jail time, but you're also looking at an oath that you swore to, as well as everyone involved. So sad situation. And what's really sad is the injured person, the other person involved in the crash, has serious injuries, and there's pictures that Lake Expo provided. They're not going to be able to walk exactly the same, and so these are going to alter their quality of life that they had prior to the accident. And so that's a whole nother variable, and probably the saddest of them all is somebody is hurt.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. It's a bad situation, just bad all the way around.
So as we move into our next local story, the federal judge shoots down Missouri's Second Amendment Conservation Act. Last Tuesday, a federal judge struck down a controversial law that we told you guys about. It's known as the Second Amendment Preservation Act, and that penalizes police for enforcing federal gun laws. Interesting enough, when this first came out, I believe our county was the first to come out with this to say, hey, we are going to be a Second Amendment Conservation Act county. Our sheriff's not going to enforce this, and we kind of said at the time, well, I mean, good luck. That kind of looks like a PR stunt, because when the feds come in, you're not going to be able to do anything about it. We learned the hard way with Skelton Lock and Key, Skelton Tactical with the firearms. You remember when the feds came in there, all in uniform with guns drawn, and they confiscated everything. Well, how did your Second Amendment Conservation Act protect that business owner? And so we had questions, and it looks like it's all for none. Yeah,
and this is kind of where the country is right now. It's a scary situation, because I think when the nation was founded, the states had basically more rights, the state rights over the federal government, or the states would just cut and run back then. Well, a long time since then, federal government's grown and become a lot more powerful, and now the federal government thinks they have more powers than the state. They can overrule the state. So if the state passes a law like this, the federal government can come in and say, no, you can't do that. We're bigger than you. Our rules are bigger than your rules.
Right.
So what's right and what's wrong? What happened to freedom in this country? But all of that is front and center with all the chaos that's going on right now around America. And what is freedom still here? Is freedom gone? Have we become a socialist nation where the federal government can just come in and tell everybody what they're going to do? This is where we're at in the country right now, and we're fighting to see what's going to happen with these kind of things. Do states, can states govern themselves, or can the federal government come in and tell them what to do? That's
the federal government can and will tell you what to do, as we're seeing in a sad situation. Might be more changes over the next 5 to 10 years as far as the setup of the states and how all that works. But for now, no more Second Amendment Preservation Act.
I wonder if the state of Missouri can take this to, take this to the Supreme Court. If they can appeal this, get the Supreme Court to make a ruling, because again, this is all Constitution stuff is on the line here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to take a break, tell you about a really cool event coming up this Saturday, and we're going to be joined by Kyle Nalowski with the Morgan County R2 or Versailles High School golf program, and then we'll be back with the rest of the show after this.
Real Deal Fishing Guide proudly presents the first annual Lake of the Ozarks Spoonbill Tournament. Get ready on Saturday, March 18th for the first ever Spoonbill Snagging Tournament, boasting a $10,000 big fish prize and over $20,000 in prizes. At Wigwam School Access in Ivy Bend, it's the first of its kind and a must-attend event. Get ready for the first annual Lake of the Ozarks Spoonbill Snagging Tournament, presented by Real Deal Fishing Guides and sponsored by Ivy Bend Land Office, Mid-Missouri Spray Foam, and Veracruz Jr. Register now at LakeOzarkFishing.com.
And as promised, we have a special guest. Before we get to that, you guys just saw that Real Deal Fishing Guides promo. Again, that's this Saturday. Someone's going to win $10,000. It could be you. You can sign up all the way up till Saturday morning at Wigwam School Access. All right, Kyle Nalowski with the Versailles High School. He's with the golf program, and we got some exciting things to talk about, Kyle. But before we go into golf, wrap us up on basketball, because you're one of the assistant coaches with the men's team, and boy, you guys had a heck of a run this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of interesting because this is my first year being in high school, and obviously with Josh being a new head coach, there was a lot of change and there was a lot of uncertainty. And I think what we did as a team was kind of put a lot of that to rest. We had amazing showings out of guys that we knew we wanted to have amazing showings out of. Ryder Williams, Reese Murdoch, obviously. It just came out that Ryder was the Conference Player of the Year. So, obviously great things from him. Reese stepping up, doing what he needs to do. Ty Ollison on the defensive end. All of our starters really stepping up. And then, of course, you had guys that I think outside the program you don't really hear a lot of. Xavier and Tristan coming out and doing the things that don't really show up on the stat sheet a whole lot. Xavier's kind of our seventh guy in the rotation, and he led the team in charges.
Yeah,
I mean,
wow.
that's one of those things where you just go, you didn't really have a lot of time to do something that happens only once in a while, and the fact that you led the team in that takes effort, and that's something that we needed.
Yeah,
So,
biggest stat in basketball, if you will. So you guys lose in the district championship, overtime heartbreaker against Springfield Catholic. But all in all, a great season, and we're seeing some momentum with your guys' district in Versailles. And so as we transition, you guys have had a really good golf program, won a state championship, I believe, in '94. But now some exciting news for the Versailles golf program. Go ahead and break that for us.
yeah, so this year was our first year having Versailles girls golf. They're a fall sport. When I took over the golf program, I noticed that, from the outside looking in, you never really notice that it's harder for girls to get recruited just because we don't have a girls golf team, and they get kind of stuck in the back. They're playing from 40 yards difference from where girls who had a girls golf team are playing from, but they're not really getting that recognition when they go see scouts and when they go see things like that. So it's a lot harder. And when I took over, my goal was to give kids as much of the opportunity that I got. And so I took that to Kyle Middleton, said, hey, I think this is something that we have a lot of interest in. And credit to him, he's probably one of the best athletic directors I've ever met, much less worked with. And I can't say enough how much he supported it. And we took it to the board, and they decided it was something they believed in and wanted to do.
Very cool. And you guys, you said in the fall being the first, so would you wrap up with the first season already? And how'd it go?
Yep. So we ended up with 9 girls in total that competed for us. When we took it to districts, we had a full team, which is something that a lot of first-year teams don't have. They have 1, 2, maybe 3 kids. We brought all 5 and said, this is what we do. And while it doesn't really show on scores, I think the biggest thing is understanding what they did as a team. We had girls like Kiara O'Rourke, who she's not a golfer, she's a softball player, but she decided this is something that she wanted to do, and she became a captain for us and did all those things and led that team and kind of built in that mentality of we've got to compete. Yeah. And then the growth that all of those girls showed, we've had girls that shaved pretty much 50 shots off their 18-hole score just because they finally understood how to compete and how to get better.
Man, you could shave 50 shots off of my 18-hole score, and I still wouldn't come close to your 18-hole score. Listen, guys, this guy is a golfer. He was a great golfer in high school and has continued to be. Okay, so I want to ask, Kyle, one thing that's new to the Versailles area for girls, and so how do you maybe increase interest for the younger kids who didn't even think about, if you were a young lady, didn't even think about maybe golfing, how do you increase interest?
So when I was in high school and college, we had the Versailles Tiger Golf Camp. It's a week-long thing at Rolling Hills, and I helped run it in high school. And then in college, toward the end of my college career, I decided, I wanted to take that over from Dad. And when I did that, I had kind of thought about, what Osage and Eldon and those types of schools are doing that are seeing success. And they have PGA-based, for lack of a better term, Little League for golf. So I went to Jason Vansel, who's awesome and one of my idols, and I know probably one of yours too.
Yeah.
And said, hey, you run MCAC, I'd like to run this through you. After about two meetings with them, I basically told them, okay, I want to run it through you, but understand if you say no, I'm probably just going to do it on my own.
Right.
And so we created MCAC Golf. It's run through me and the high school team. We have the high schoolers coach them.
Wow.
And they come out and play once or twice a week during the summer. We kind of floated around baseball so that they can do both because I want them to experience as much sport as possible. But to be able to give them that and show them that you can do this forever, that's the thing that I really am passionate about.
Very cool, man. Well, I know the boys' season's underway, a couple weeks of practice under your belt. You're leading that charge, and a lot going on at Versailles as well. New conference, we talked with Jason Ollison and Jason Vansel about that, but all in all, really exciting time for the Morgan County R2 School District. I see you guys just hired a new superintendent. So lots of great things happening. Kyle, I know you're right in there. One of the busiest guys in the district. Basketball, you're with men's and women's golf. And then, of course, I know you probably still like to hit the links occasionally.
Oh, every once in a while. Every once in a while.
All right, that's Kyle Nalowski. He is with the Versailles High School Golf Program. We thank you for joining us, and we'll be right back on Cup of Coffee after this. All right, so now you know you have an inside look at the Versailles golf program. Pretty cool. They got girls golf now,
absolutely.
which is great. So still an option for Brinley to go to Versailles because she's going to be a golfer.
Well, and I
Telling you
think
right now.
the Osage women won the state tournament last year in golf.
Yeah,
How about that?
Yeah, they were state champions,
Yeah.
which was really, really neat. And so maybe I ought to send her to Osage. All right, so as we get back into it, another great story from Lake Expo, but the Lake Ozark Board of Aldermen all about unlimited support for the casino bill we told you about a couple weeks ago. And as a matter of fact, very thankful to the donations from the Osage Nation. So looks like the city of Lake Ozark all about Osage Nation.
They like this casino thing. And so they didn't want to upset either side because there's two different sides trying to come in with casinos, right? One on the river and then the Indian Nation where they don't have to be on water. So faced with the prospect of these two casinos in or on the outskirts of the city, the Lake Ozark Board of Aldermen voiced their support for the one, the river one, right, which is coming up governmentally to try to change the Constitution to get another one on the water. And at the same time, they also reached out to the Osage Nation saying, we love you too. You know, good job for donating so much money locally, which the Osage Nation has been doing. So they're keeping both sides happy.
It's kind of like when it's not your birthday and your sibling gets a birthday gift, but your mom still gets you something because, you know, it's kind of like that. You don't want to have the other sibling boo-hooing because they didn't get a birthday gift. So Osage Nation, we wanted to thank you for all the donations.
Yep.
And by the way, could you send us another donation?
Yeah, by the way, our roads need some work. Send some more money our way, right? So, but you know, that's politics.
It
and
is.
that's actually good politics where you're not, you know, if everything is still working out well, legally, working good for localities, they're keeping everybody happy, which seems to be smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen that from the Lake Ozark, not just the Board of Aldermen with some of their new aldermen, but Mayor Dennis Newberry. And they've got a lot of good things going within the city limits. And of course, the nightly rentals, we talked about that. The Road and Bridge Committee, there's been an actual Road and Bridge Committee created from Mayor Dennis Newberry with some Board of Aldermen and some business owners. And so they're definitely focusing on the issues at hand in the city limits. And so supporting the casino, imagine if you didn't and it comes anyway and you haven't played nice and then the biggest player in your city limits you've already made mad. And so I think they got to be careful.
Well, and it's interesting too because the Osage Nation Casino's CEO is Kimberly Pearson. She just took over recently. In response to the resolution, she issued the statement following the following day. She said, "We're proud of our work to bring a world-class entertainment center to the Lake of the Ozarks and appreciate the support we have received from the local community." So just because things have been slow and quiet, they're still cooking. They're still moving.
And a lot of this is behind the scenes, and these are important steps that have to take place. Build that partnership, build that trust, and because once this comes to fruition, I think it's smart for the city to be as involved as possible, because if they have influence within these organizations, these groups, the Osage Nation, they're going to be able to make sure that they're on the up and up and that things they do, things they add on, aren't a detriment to the city, and so they're playing it smart. I commend them.
I think so too.
For that. All right, so listen, this is really cool. Before I get to Mizzou, I heard that we had a local team win a state championship.
Yeah, and I got to watch it too.
Tell us about it.
So I love these state basketball tournaments. Here in Missouri, I go every year. I went to the classes 1, 2, and 3 state championships last weekend. 4, 5, and 6 are this weekend. And we had a couple of local teams win state championships. For the girls, Fairgrove, which is kind of local, not real local, but the Fairgrove girls beat El Dorado Springs. And the Tipton ladies, congratulations, Coach Jason Culpepper, Tipton's first state championship. The girls beating Bishop Lalonde. The only team that beat Tipton during the regular season was Bishop Lalonde. So the Tipton girls get a little revenge, winning the state championship over their kind of rival there. So, man, what a great team, and what a program Coach Jason Culpepper's put together.
Yeah, and you see that video there. Chris was there, like you said, got some video for us. And Jason Culpepper, little tidbit, when I was at State Fair and my undergrad coaching with Darren Pannier on the women's side, he was on the men's side. He played at Lincoln High School down by Warsaw, and he didn't get a lot of playing time, but was a great basketball mind. And to see that translate now to the coaching success he's had, congratulations to Jason. And man, the Tipton Cardinals, the Tipton Lady Cardinals, state champions.
Well, and Jason and a couple of his Lady Cardinals are going to be on an upcoming Lake TV community spotlight show, so be watching for that. You'll really enjoy that. That'll be fun.
How cool is that? Speaking of the Spotlight Show, this week, tune in for School of the Osage. Jeff Kyle, the band director, long time, and I'm telling you, great guy. He plays on Praise and Worship with us at Osage Hills. Phenomenal. Him and Ashley been there forever. And then Amy Yoder, who's the choir director. You're going to get an inside look at those two special humans, but also the powerhouses they've built within that Osage district.
Yeah, and it's not just the high school. School of the Osage, they also work with middle school and even kind of watches the elementary kids are coming up, and what they have built there in the band and in the choirs, just amazing.
What's funny is Jeff doesn't look it, but he was Unique's band director when she was in school.
Wow.
He didn't look like he's old enough to have been out of college long, which is awesome. Hey, and then following this week's Spotlight guest, it's almost shootout season. It's going to sneak up on us.
Yeah.
And that's your first shootout segment.
Yeah, we've got Leah Martin, who is the director of the Lake of the Ozarks shootout. So Leah will join us and talk about, the shootout's becoming so big, they've had to spread out some of the events. So they're starting here in the spring. The events are starting, they're coming up. So we'll talk about what those events are, when they are, and then, of course, talk about the big summer ahead. And there's some big changes for the shootout. They are growing leaps and bounds.
And if you want to find a way to just in about 15 minutes find out about all those changes, get a head start on your plans for Shootout 2023, catch that Community Spotlight show with Uncle Chris starting next Tuesday, the 21st. All right, so now before we wrap it up, I'm all excited. I'm all geeked because by the time you watch this, it might have already happened.
Yeah.
But Thursday, Missouri's playing their opening round game. I guess really the second round because you have the playing games. I'm telling you what, Mizzou basketball, Chris, finished the regular season with the SEC 2-game tournament. They added 24-9.
Yeah.
24 wins, most wins Mizzou's had since 2011. They, of course, get Tennessee. They beat in the quarterfinals, which was a huge win, and then lost to Alabama Saturday. Did you watch the game Saturday?
Watch parts of it. I was down at the state basketball
down at the
tournament.
high school tournament. But I know him and I are the same. When we're at games, we might have two screens. We might be watching a TV in the corner and watching the game.
And the phone.
Because there's so much going on this time of year with high school and college. But, of course, I was impressed with the way they played Bama. They shot terrible, still competed, still defended, actually rebounded better than they had. So they get that 7 seed and are going to play Utah State, like I said, maybe already played Thursday at 12:40. And next week we'll reveal ours. Now, the deadline, don't think that we get a chance to see the opening games. Our deadline's locked Thursday.
Yeah.
So we'll reveal our Elite Eight, and I'm hoping by the time that we get to next week's show, most of Uncle Chris's Elite Eight teams are already out.
I'll probably be done. I'll be cooked. I'll be out. Yeah, but then again, I might shock everybody because I did win the NFL championship, the Lake TV NFL Picks 2 years ago, and then I let somebody else win this year.
We're going to be talking about this 30 years from now. You're like, don't forget, 31 years ago, I won that thing.
That's right, yeah.
That's hilarious.
I got to hang on to that stuff.
I thought it was worth noting, though. You remember how much I loved Coach Gates when we hired him?
Yeah.
He already got a contract extension
Yep.
through 28-29, and his buyout, $25.5 million.
Hey, man, I need a contract like that. Fire me for $25 million.
Believe me, I'd be I would be happy if
Yeah.
they never have to exercise that buyout. But really cool, so that's going to be a long time deal for him. Don't forget, Saturday, the St. Patty's Day Parade at 1 o'clock right here on Lake
That's
TV.
why I'm wearing green.
And then last thing I got to tell you, next Thursday, the 23rd, Lake TV is holding a public forum, Osage Beach alderman, school board member, Lake Ozark mayor, and a couple other things, so don't miss that. That's going to do it for this week's Cup of Coffee. We'll see you.